Good evening. You're watching Mirror Now. I'm Faye. Thank you for joining us. India has, over the last 24 hours, put itself in a position of power. How do we use this position of power at this point to ensure our long-term goals? Our long-term goals of dismantling terror and terror bases and terror training in Pakistan, ensuring that Hafiz Saeed, Dawood Ibrahim, and Masood Azhar are handed over to India, and ensuring lasting peace in the Kashmir Valley. What do we do now to ensure that our long-term strategy and policy towards Pakistan, Kashmir and terrorism achieves all of its goals? To begin with, I'm very pleased and honoured to introduce to you retired Air Chief Marshal of the Indian Air Force, A.Y. Tipnis. Sir, first of all, I want to thank you for the time you have given us. Good evening to you. It's obviously a moment of relief for the entire Air Force and its entire community at this point that Wing Commander Abhinandan will be returned to India tomorrow. But a very strongly worded press conference being addressed by the military telling us that India will not back down. What was your main reading from that press conference? Was it a tough message to Pakistan that we are not seeing this as a peace gesture and you are not doing us any favors?
Certainly, I mean, that is quite clear that Pakistan is just acting according to how they should be as per the Geneva Convention, and there were no favors given, and there is nothing for us to be thankful except to say, yes, we are glad that you are following, the norms that all international relations follow. One of, conventions that are laid down and you don't violate them. But while you're talking about this, we're very happy about the Wing Commander coming back tomorrow morning. I also want to express my enormous pride at the way this young Wing Commander conducted himself under custody, blindfolded, hands tied at the back, bleeding from here and there. Yet, the fellow didn't show as though he's been cowed down. He held his head up, shoulders back, and spoke authoritatively. And I do get the feeling that the Pakistan Air Force would get more from his body language than they would have got, from the downing of another F-16. So all strength to him, and we are very, very proud of him. Well, from today's, if your question was on the extent of the briefing that was carried out, whenever military briefings are carried out, during actually a operation that is underway, it is important that, when you give away, you give information so that your own public knows what you are up to, what has been the success of your operation, and any deficiencies that may have occurred. But at the same time, you have to be very cautious that you don't let out on, the tactics they have used or the technology that they have used, because it does give some indication to the enemy what they need to do. Yes, if they are overly overwhelmed, then of course they'll be cowed down, or at least be very, very afraid to take a bold step. So I understand this. Certainly the conference could have been a little more forthcoming as far as the public is concerned, because they still feel that, they would like some specific information to confirm, photographs, for instance, that, the damage has been done, that this was in fact a place where terrorists were operating from, and perhaps, some casualties that were there. But, once again, one has to be careful about the optics of this. And as they say, even in any pictures, you always say, please be careful, this may not appeal to all viewers. So one has to be very circumspect about what you actually show. It also would have divulged to them, the sort of methods that we use or equipment that we have, the photographic equipment, whether it is radar, whether it is infrared, whether it is optical, that we use to do, after the attack assessment. So I believe that, all this, there's some certain amount of confidentiality that we want to bring in to ensure that, our own strengths are not made known to the other side.
But Marshal Tipnis, the question of the evidence
Have I
that was
answered your
presented...
question, or there's something more to it?
Yes, forgive me. The question of the evidence that was presented to prove to the media...
Yes. Now, I spoke about...
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, so I spoke about, firstly, I only spoke about, the evidence for the attacks done at these terrorist camps. But now, coming back to the air action that happened yesterday, as you know, the Pakistani initial reports were totally off the mark, and they were claiming 2 aircraft down, 3 pilots captured, or at least down. And when they realized, actually, that it's not so, then, from 3 they came down to 2 pilots, and then from 2 aircraft they came down to 1 aircraft, because they realized that one of the aircraft was in fact theirs, and the pilot also was a Pakistani pilot. So, they changed this continuously. That is as the downing of the aircraft is concerned. But I would talk in terms of, the evidence that we've had that the F-16s were operating, because, they are saying, no, our F-16s, they were in denial form once again there, to say that the F-16s, in fact, did not participate. The reason being, they don't want to admit that an aircraft, which is probably 2 generations, at least a generation and a half behind the F-16, actually bettered him. Although, of course, it is not the original MiG-21 we got, it's a very updated, with a very sophisticated radar, with excellent air-to-air missiles. But, the optics, the F-16, and which is their best aircraft, where as far as we are concerned, in the air defense role, the MiG-21 is the most inferior aircraft. We have aircraft like the Mirage 2000, the MiG-29, and the Sukhoi 30. They are way above the caliber of the MiG-21. So if they say, if this is what is happening to us with the MiG-21, imagine what happens with the rest of the aircraft. So they were circumspect. Now, it was proven that it is an F-16 because they have said that they recognize the radar signature, that was the radar that was transmitting. And they also, found the debris of the air-to-air missile, the AIM-120, which is a air-to-air medium-range missile. And the markings on that are very clear. I mean, you could see that in the photographs that were presented, that it is an AIM-120, and all experts, professionals know what an AIM-120 is. So there is no doubt about this. There were also some pictures of engine, but I think you need to be a really high engineer analyst to recognize that what type of an engine it is. And I don't think I was in a position to comment whether this is the engine that is fitted on the F-16, because it has 2 different types of engines. So that is one aspect. So I don't think there was any doubt as far as the F-16 participated. Now, the second aspect is the strength of the attack that actually Pakistan launched. 24 aircraft. It's a huge, aerial strength for one operation alone. Now, we sent 12 aircraft night before last to attack 4 targets. But they were not all attack aircraft. They were escort aircraft. Escort means air defense escort aircraft. They probably were EW escort, that is electronic warfare, to make sure, you are suppressing their radars. So that is why the composite. Now, what was the purpose of this 24 aircraft? That is intriguing. And now, some of the images that were shown, the figures that were drawn, the diagram that was drawn, depicting, 24 aircraft coming from Pakistan side and our 8 aircraft confronting them. The depiction gave the impression they were tightly knit together.
Yes.
But in fact, these 24 aircraft won't be like this. They will spread laterally over, I expect, at least 5 to maybe even 10 kilometers wide. And a depth of, again, anything up to 5 to 10 kilometers. Then again, the vertical, there would be a stagger, because that's how they do it. Now, when they came with 24, we have not only detected them well in time, but we have reacted fast enough to intercept them, before they have come very much inside the line of control. So it certainly had the leader of that formation, and of course the guys who are probably controlling them from the ground, taken aback. Hey, what's happening? How do they know we have already come? So they also, first of all, how do they detect as early as we did? What have we got? Is the AVAX flying around there? Because their radars won't see AVAX, because it will be out of their radar range, but yet he's able to see the aircraft intruding into our territory. So immediately they knew that we had the drop on them. Now, okay, even if they had 24 aircraft and they went through the attack, now the military expert or the person who debriefed on that, the Major General, said that, well, they dropped their bombs, in one of the army locations where probably there's a battalion or brigade headquarters and, of course, the paraphernalia that goes along with it. Now, I am not too sure whether that actually was the target. It well could have been. But 24 aircraft is not required. And in fact, you don't need aircraft to attack a target as close as as that installation is to the line of control. This is just, again, a conjecture on my part. It's the way I have perceived it. I may be well wrong. So I suspect, in fact, the target was far greater than this. 24 aircraft with F-16s. And of course, there must have been some J-17s also, the Chinese aircraft. And I suspect that the target, in fact, could well have been Avantipur and Srinagar airfields, the two main bases within Kashmir Valley. Naturally, why would they launch a large attack? Because we had launched that attack. We were very successful. We got away scot-free, unscathed. Now, they came over here and they wanted to show that, because now somehow or the other, we have cut their noses. That, listen, these guys have come, they have not even reacted, they have damaged, and we are just sitting pretty. So it is something which is very difficult for them to explain, not only to the lay civil population, but to themselves, to the rest of the Pakistan Air Force. Hey, listen, what goes on? Are we really caught napping? Now, when they are doing here and they've realized the reaction has been so good, I think we have deterred them, and their primary role, they have just turned back. They have aborted the mission. All 24 aircraft have aborted that mission, and I think it's a huge success. Besides the fact that we shot down one F-16, but the fact that 24 aircraft, turned tail, I think tactically, it's not strategically. Strategically mean in the bigger sense that they will think twice, because they have reacted within 24 hours of close to that, of our attack on them. And I don't think they've done enough planning. It's more of a knee-jerk reaction than any deep thinking and tactical planning. So
well,
all in all, you can see
Air Chief
that
Marshal Tipnis, with your permission, I would like to include
one hell of a lot.
Yes, I would like to include a couple of other members of the panel into this conversation. Joining us on the show right now is Vice Admiral Bangara as well. For our viewers' benefit, Vice Admiral Bangara was part of the attack on Karachi in '97. We're getting him on the show. He was also the head of naval information. He headed warfare and operations in '99 and 2000 till 2002. He was also posted in Pakistan between '85 and '88, and we'll have him in the conversation fairly quickly. We also have Air Marshal P.K. Barbora, Manu Pabi, who's a senior journalist, and Vinay Tiwari, who joins me in the studio. I have a quick question for Air Marshal Tipnis before we move on to the rest of the conversation, and that's the question about de-escalation and lasting peace. Do you believe right now that India is in a position of power to dictate how we can end terror that's based out of Pakistan, and take Pakistan's word for the fact that that terror has in fact been dismantled completely?
I think
let me be very
it gives us every reason not to deter from the resolve that we have made. And what has been our resolve? Our resolve has been to take preemptive action against terrorists who were intending to launch attacks against us. And we certainly have prevented them. We have shown that we have not only the capability of doing it, but we also have the will to do it. And the resolve to continue with this decision that we have taken. Now, if Pakistan gives us credible evidence that, they are dismantling these camps, they are, organizations are being taken off, broken up, then it's very, very good. But we have to have credible and visible evidence for that purpose. And if Pakistan fails to do it to our satisfaction, and we are satisfied that there is no question of these terrorists doing these warlike attacks against us, I think we should continue with this, despite the fact that people have asked us to, exercise restraint, because Pakistan has not responded as they ought to.
Marshal Babora, Marshal Babora, do you agree as well that India should perhaps continue? Because we have a couple of options before us at this point. We have the option, we have military options, we have diplomatic options, we have international law, and of course economic options. But from the military point of view, do you believe that India should step up or keep the pressure up on Pakistan, given the advantage that we have tonight?
In my personal opinion, whatever happened in the last 2.5 days, I feel is more than adequate to tell Pakistan as to what they are against. And if they don't understand pure military language, like what we have displayed, like my chief had mentioned in his talk, that they were surprised, caught with their pants down, stuck to their ankles when we hit them at night. And we came back with almost 100% success, I'm sure, and no attrition to our own package of aircraft. Then, the way they launched their missions, which we detected and we thwarted them from coming into our territory, and shooting down an F-16 by a MiG-21, I'm sure has sent a lot of shivers down the back of the spine of their defense services, more so their Air Force for that matter. Now, in the military form, in the Air Force will stand by, keep the pressure on, they know what we are. We mustn't let this pressure ever give off till the time Pakistan agrees in writing to the international community that they have now taken steps to wind down all these terror camps. The first action should be that all the firing across the LOC from both the sides must stop. And next is, like the chief said, give credible evidence to all parties concerned of what actions they are doing. I feel, the government of India should ask for a third party to be able to inspect that they have really done what they are saying, if they are going to say it. Pressure must be on from all the fronts, diplomatic, military, economic, every side it must be on to tell them that we are not going to stop till the time you give way. And I think, and I personally think, that we are on the right track, and with the government using all its diplomatic powers internationally, would be able to achieve this.
Yes, and I do want to open this up right now to discuss all of those options. Vinay Tiwari, as we do understand, and the media briefing by the services made it absolutely clear that we're battle ready. We're battle ready in air, in water, at land. The armed infantry has also moved in. The submarines have been deployed. We couldn't be more ready, and couldn't be a harder message to send out. But there are also the options of diplomatic and economic and international law. If we consider diplomacy at this point, and the isolation that Pakistan finds itself in, the use of the F-16, which is important because Pakistan made a commitment. And for those of our viewers who don't know this, when Pakistan sourced the F-16s from America, which is where they bought it from, they made a commitment that those F-16s would not be used against India. They would, in fact, be used in anti-terror activity. So the evidence that has been presented in this press conference is very important and can be used against Pakistan by India diplomatically. Is that true?
It can be, and I think that's the reason why they displayed it. The end-use restrictions that US has in its contract, although, look, I mean, the fact that there is an end-use restriction itself is a little impractical. You wouldn't really expect Pakistan to follow that restriction, even though it's on paper. But in an international scenario, it's very critical, this evidence, and that's the reason why they displayed it. I think they felt the need to show it publicly because they want to show Pakistan as somebody who doesn't honor agreements. And that's pretty much a future strategy as well, because any other arms deal that anyone else is perhaps even thinking of, India will have a stronger case to suggest how they dishonor commitments made in international agreements. So very important piece of doing. But I think the larger point, Faye, that the earlier question that you asked about the pressure, I'm very clear about it, that unfortunately the current discourse has to some extent gotten overtaken by two events, and the event being one, the hitting of Balakot, and then the unfortunate capture of the Indian Air Force wing commander.
Yes.
The reason why Balakot had to be hit is because for a long time India has followed a policy of self-restraint by not crossing a particular line, which is the LOC, and staying this side and then doing it. That policy clearly has had limited impact. I mean, they haven't exactly responded to India's restraint in the way they should have. This time, the leadership's decision to actually allow this to happen beyond the LOC is a significant policy shift. And this policy shift requires follow-up. You cannot stop only at hitting Balakot and not do anything beyond this in the future.
Yes, we're not
economically,
done, basically.
Army, militarily, as well as diplomatically.
Yes. So obviously there are options before India right now. We also have Manu Pabi, who's a senior editor at the Economic Times, who's covered the defense sector very closely. Manu, good evening. Where do you think India has to go next? Because obviously, and if we list out, and you know, this is back of the envelope listing, dismantling terror completely, the breeding of terror in Pakistan, having Dawood Ibrahim, Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar handed over to us would be priorities at this point. How can India make sure that happens?
Okay, so start off with, I think we just come back from the brink of something very dramatic.
Yes.
The way that things panned out yesterday, this could have gone either way, and we showed our intent that we could have gone all out in case any harm was done to our guys. In fact, the briefing that was held today, all the three officers from the three services, they made it clear how alert and ready we are to respond. But the other interesting point on your on what to go forward on. See, the army officer made it very clear when the question was asked to him on what will happen. He said that, our target is not the Pakistani military. We will continue our operations against terror camps, terror installations. So, in my opinion, from what I see, I think we will continue the targeted takedowns of terror assets, even within Pakistan. Whether there will be another strike like Balakot is debatable, because you can't do these strikes very often. It's not possible to do it every few weeks. You have to take your time and place of your choosing. But action will continue. I also would imagine that a harsher crackdown against terror elements operating inside Kashmir, supported by the Pakistan establishment, is going to take place concurrently. So 2 or 3 things are going to happen. One is, of course, continued operation on the line of control. We have been pounding the Pakistani side with artillery and with small arms for a while. Secondly, targeted operations inside Pakistan, intelligence-based, but not something which is very frequent. And thirdly, as I said earlier, the crackdown against terrorists within Kashmir itself is going to go on.
Well, Vice Admiral Bangara joins us right now. Good evening, Admiral Bangara. It's a pleasure to have you on this conversation. Of course, we've come out of that, that unprecedented press conference that was addressed by the Army, the Navy and the Air Force. The question that we're now asking tonight is this: the way ahead for India. How do we use the advantage that we have, the stronger position that we have today, for a long-term change in our policy towards Pakistan, towards terror, to make sure that we dismantle terror, to make sure that we manage to get in custody and handed over those on our most wanted list that are currently in Pakistan, and perhaps also to restore peace to the Valley of Kashmir? Do you believe that India is now in a position to actually make these 3 things happen?
Faye, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
We've had, oh, good, good. We had a technical problem, so I've been out. I didn't hear the other panelists, but coming to your specific question, I had the privilege to live in Pakistan for 3 years, many years ago, under Zia, so I saw the beginning of this change. Let me address this and say all these are lofty thoughts that you have just put across, but I can't see any of them working just now, and I'll tell you why. The armed forces who have been facing this menace for so many years, we are guided by the laws of armed conflict. And there we are trained to distinguish between those who are combatants and those who are non-combatants. Now, these terrorists and the jihadis don't fall in either of the categories, because those who are irregular forces are also under responsible command. So we have a problem dealing with them, but the Pakistanis are very happy to have that because they have no other way of bleeding us. It was Zia who started this during his long presidency. And as you now know, they wanted to put a system where we can be constantly bled. Now, if you have to stop bleeding, then you have to address the issues of the entire approach to the terrorists. Now, I'm delighted that the government has taken the stand that they have taken now. This is the first time in many, many years that we have seen a break of an approach to solve this problem. But none of this will vanish until the Pakistan army is in control of everything that happens politically and otherwise. That is the bottom line. Now, if you ask, how do we get rid of the army from that? That is not an Indian problem, that's a Pakistani problem. But I would be happy to hear the other panelists too.
But Admiral Bangara, what you're effectively telling us is that this is a problem that cannot be solved, at least by cannot be solved by any effort on our side.
Our efforts had serious problems about our structural issues, arming of our troops, providing the budgetary support. Those our internal issues have to be addressed. They have not yet been addressed. But be that as it may, we can fight. We have time and again proved that we can fight with whatever we have, and we fight better. But that is an internal issue. But externally, I can't see anything changing in Pakistan. Imran, in any case, is a good cricketer and a good puppet now, but that is not going to change anything. True democracy is not likely to happen in Pakistan because there are decades of decay that has happened in the political military system. So I can't see that changing. Now, we have to make sure we cut the army off in all the dealings there, although I know many have suggested talk to the army. The army knows that the day this stops, their own survival in Pakistan is in question.
Well, I'm going to open this up to the panel right now, and anyone who wants to weigh in, please do. The question, of course, picking up from where Admiral Bangara said that Imran Khan is a good cricketer and now a good puppet. Is it a puppet? And it's a puppet who keeps telling us he's interested in peace. Can we take his word for it? Is this puppet in any way reliable? I saw Manu Pabi put his hand up. Manu, go ahead.
Yeah, see, to answer your question on options for India, I think what has happened in this strike and the aftermath of it, what we've effectively done is we've used a very low value asset, say a MiG-21, to take down an F-16 of the Pakistani Air Force. So the way to punish Pakistan for sponsoring terrorism, according to the Indian Armed Forces doctrine, is to make the cost of terror very heavy on them, the cost of sponsoring terror. So by taking the fight to the military itself, like in this case, taking down an asset which they can afford to lose, I think is going to discourage them from supporting terror in the way that they have been doing till now. And the fact is, see, Pakistan is getting struck from both sides now. They have got the American forces bombing them from their western borders. Now, if India's opened up strikes from the eastern side as well, you can imagine that the impression of the armed forces within Pakistan is also going to go down. You can't protect either border. You're getting bombarded, And so for them not to lose face, perhaps in the longer term, the policy that the Indian armed forces have advocated is that you have to take the damage to the Pakistani military establishment itself. So I think that's one possible way ahead of ensuring they don't indulge in such terrorism sponsoring as they've done in the past.
Well, Air Marshal Babora put his hand up. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it is like this. In my personal opinion, the pseudo-democracy that exists in Pakistan has to be brought to a halt. Now, why is the army holding on to power? They've had 6 generals who became presidents of their country since their independence. Where are those generals? What do they generally do is they cut after they finish their tenure, they cut abroad, have bought properties worth, I don't know, billions maybe, and happy to live like that, but not in their own country. All major Pakistan business has got an army angle always attached to it. Their army would never like to give away all these privileges and perks. And the next thing, they have got their friend who's in our north, China. China has unfortunately taken a long time to even say that terrorism exists in Pakistan. But they haven't turned the head because they have got an economic interest in Pakistan, for which I understand about close to $40 billion have already been pumped in. And it's going through the troubled area of POK, going towards Balochistan. They are very apprehensive and hence they have agreed. Now, if China had not agreed this time, I'm sure the international community would have pointed a finger at China and said they are supporting terrorism indirectly. Now, this is where the international community and India, as the force behind, should try and achieve in the long run to get Pakistan to be a good democracy with all its neighbors as friendly people. But till the time we achieve that, and till the time the army has control over the government, any government could be there, I am sorry, this changeover will take maybe 50 years, I don't know.
So what you all are effectively telling us is that the puppet cannot be trusted, and for as long as the army is the puppet master, anything that Imran Khan says about peace perhaps shouldn't be taken at face value, will it?
Yes, and I mean, Admiral Bangara, I can't add much to what he's saying, but I'll endorse something with the very little of Pakistan that I know. He's lived there and he can endorse me on this. The biggest problem with Pakistan is, as we were discussing earlier, it has a poor class and it has a rich class. There is no real middle class to hold the nation together. The only thing aspirational in that country, in many ways, for a large section, is the armed forces. And they have manipulated and used the people and the politics for so long that they are now deeply entrenched in the minds and consciousness. Nothing really moves without the army or them being involved in it. So, in fact, it's a very strange situation where the people kind of now anticipate, expect and like that.
Yes.
It is so much a part of the establishment that I don't see this problem going away so soon. Just as Admiral Bangara said, it's going to take a very, very long time, if at all. And unless they create some sort of a middle class which kind of holds the country together and makes it aspiring for other things in life
other than just
the armed forces.
But what effectively, gentlemen, what you've done is told me that I've started off with a pipe dream and it cannot be achieved. So let me change the question then to this. India does have an advantage in a position of power this evening after the press conference we heard from our sources. How can we use this position of power then to make sure that the effect is more lasting? Because every time we've had, what we thought was a win, there was another attack. There was Pathankot, there was Uri before that, an attack on our very own parliament, and Mumbai even before that. How do we make sure that that sort of terror is stopped or, through the best of our ability, using the advantage of what we have today? So I'm changing the question now to see where we can go from here in our way ahead. I did see Air Chief Marshal Tipnis put his hand up. Go ahead, sir.
I think that's the crux of the problem. I mean, all of us know what is wrong with Pakistan, but do we know how to proceed with that wrong? Now, what we have all done with this action that was taken on the 26th of February, it's a one-off tactical action. It has no place in a bigger picture. We are saying that, this was a preemptive non-military action to take on this terrorist camp. Now, what is terrorism? It's all over the world. It's like that, multi-headed hydra. You cut one head off, two will sprout. They will change their nomenclature, they will change their avatar, and somebody else will come. So while we are doing this, action to contain terrorism, our problem is Pakistan. And we have to understand that unless, we sort out Pakistan, things will remain like this. Since partition, for 70 years, 72 years, we have carried on like this. I was a young boy, during the 48 war. Now, my youngest grandson is 18 years old and he's seeing things worse than they were in 48. Is his grandson going to see things exactly the same or even worse? So we have to have a grand strategy of how we deal with Pakistan. Now look at the way the attitude of Pakistan towards us and ours towards them. Pakistan wants India to be broken up. They want the hegemony in South Asia. Even if you say, because on the surface it appears that terrorism is because they want to liberate Kashmir. Okay, you say give them Kashmir and you say, okay, here, take this Kashmir and sit still. You think they'll sit still? Never. Because Pakistan inherently wants to be the dominant power in South Asia. So they will never stop at this. At the very start of ideologies, start of a division of two countries, Pakistan ideology was exactly diametrically opposite to ours. It can never see eye to eye. Now they want to break up India, yet we are pundits over here tend to think that if Pakistan is strong, if Pakistan is stable, there'll be no issues. Yes, there is some value in it, but I don't see that happening because their economy has been deteriorating. In every aspect, they have gone from bad to worse, whereas we have gone upwards. So we have to have a policy to make sure that we weaken Pakistan economically, culturally, in all sorts of ways, so we isolate them. We make them a pariah. Now, we are talking about Kashmir. Have you ever talked about Balochistan? Is Balochistan a part of Pakistan? We have got a few diplomats sitting in here with us. Probably they can explain this better than I can. But they annexed this, after India was divided into Pakistan and India. Now, again, when people say that,
yes,
a stable Pakistan is helpful to us. Let me ask you this. If Bangladesh today had remained as East Pakistan, would we be more vulnerable or will we be more safe? I mean, it's straightforward. Of course, we are far better off now because there's not a third front. Similarly, if Balochistan goes away, there is so much of problems in Sindh, there is so much of problems in Pakistan, which is the central theme of Pakistan is West Punjab. So you have to make sure, there is no question of, no, we are good guys, we don't do bad things, there is no covert action. You have to do this if you want a secure India. We cannot live in perpetuity with let me take that
to the rest of the panel, if I may, with your permission, sir.
We have to make sure that there is a grand strategy.
Yes. The question of economics and the question of using economics, using international law, using our ability and diplomacy to weaken Pakistan. Admiral Bagara, Pakistan currently has about $17 billion in reserve. It's not a great country. In fact, Vinay was pointing out the other day how Bangladesh perhaps is performing better than Pakistan economically. And at this point, if we notice how Imran Khan was sort of bending over backwards when the Saudi prince visited, because they desperately need the investment. The investment right now is perhaps more crucial than one-upmanship with India. Can this be used to strong-arm Pakistan into dismantling terror?
First point that I made, Faye, is that you dismantle terror and the army is in trouble. So as long as the army is strong, that will never happen. But let me come to the other issue. Pakistan was definitely far better in the 80s economically, and their quality of life also appeared to be much better than ours. Much has changed. Pakistan can never aspire to be a regional power. It can't aspire to be even hegemonistic in South Asia. I mean, these are all things like if we claim that we will go and, we will beat China in what they're doing, you can't. There is now such a huge gap between India and Pakistan. They all realize it. So these things which suit the army at the moment is to keep the pot boiling, which is only through the terror route. If the United Nations can't get together and even put a description of what is terrorism, or agree with all the countries agree that this is what we call terrorism, I think we should have taken the first step. But India is doing it very well now, diplomatically, and of course you don't have to worry about the economic aspects, militarily, and in all of the spheres, we don't have to do anything to Pakistan. We let them implode because the aspirations of the Pakistanis are rising so rapidly that they will not be able to match what they need. And I'll just give you a small example. I think in 2012, I went to, with great difficulty, I was asked to attend a seminar which was in a university. And I then had the opportunity to meet a whole lot of teenagers, youngsters, and not one of them, they all knew who I was. They all knew I had lived there many years ago. Not one of them asked me about Kashmir, asked me about the so-called issues between the governments. They were asking me questions about how can we get into IITs in India? How can we get into IIMs or medical colleges in India? Their complete thinking is different. And this is the aspiration which is going to get them.
Well, we're also waiting for the finance minister to begin a press briefing. But Admiral Bangara, very quickly, squeeze in a question before that press briefing actually begins. We do know that the Navy today made an announcement that it has completely deployed submarines, ships and in the air. Is this also, not even a thinly veiled threat, but a clear message to Pakistan, because our Indian Navy has bettered and bested Pakistan in the past?
Faye, we did it during Kargil. We had nothing to do with the war that was going on there, or the battle, but we deployed. We got our Eastern Fleet to the west. We deployed fully, and that was a pressure point to say, contain it there. Don't think of, expanding this. So the Navy, the Army and the Air Force will get deployed, and we didn't have to wait for too many orders from the government. We deployed much before anything happened, because that is the way we can apply pressure. So that is nothing new. We have done it, and it was successful last time. It will still be successful. In terms of the briefing, I heard you say that the 3 armed forces people coming up for briefing, you were not around during Kargil. Every single day, it was the 3 services which briefed on television on the day's occurrence.
But Admiral Bangara, one by one, not all together.
This is the first time the battle came. Yeah. Sorry?
During Kargil, the briefing was one by one. They never briefed all together, all 3 of them together.
Anyway.
No. Every evening we had a combined briefing. And since the Navy was not participating, I was heading the naval operations.
Okay.
So we were present in that hall. All the discussions were all 3 services, but we may not have sat on the main chair, because the battle was primarily the Army and later the Air Force. But it was always, our presence was there for question answers, etc. The battle came to the drawing room for the first time in India during Kargil. So this is nothing new, and this should happen more often.
I quickly want to bring Vinay in as well. And Vinay, the conversation that we're having at this point about the fact that we have put pressure, we've sent clear messages to Pakistan, but how do we finally seal that deal? Where does this go from here? India has not de-escalated, or India has not at least softened its stand. In fact, we've made an even stronger move now by saying we're in place, we're in position, we're battle ready on all fronts. What happens from here? Is the ball now in Pakistan's court? Because Pakistan is effectively thinks it has made the first step by saying, we're releasing your wing commander. But what happens from here?
It's very obvious and very clear that today evening's press conference, the briefing has put the ball squarely in Pakistan's court. It's very clear that they're saying that if you try anything more, we are fully ready and more than that to come back and get you. What India can do more, and I think that's where I agree, Balkot was just a temporary one event. That's not a solution for the problem. That's just a messaging, that's just a positioning, that's just a statement of intent that we will come inside and hit you in case you are getting adventurous. The longer term has to be economic to a large extent. I mean, we were discussing just a short while back, Faye, that Pakistan pretty much has three exports. They have cotton, they have leather, and they have rice. That's perhaps the only thing they have. I mean, India has enough economic clout abroad, internationally, to cripple them in that export, what they manage. India today sits on very high tables in international economic forums like IMF and World Bank, and there is enough clout that India has to cripple that as well. Indian government has enough clout even to push the Indian corporates from not investing in Pakistan.
Forgive me, and I'm just going to take you through the cabinet briefing has begun, and apparently it is a conversation about the amendment in the 1954 order reservation. So we're just going to quickly cut in and see if we can catch the bit of that and just find out what the finance minister is announcing.
Life because they are on the national borders. Because they are on the national borders or the line of control. Under the 2004 Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Act, that reservation existed only for those living next to the line of control. The same criteria will now apply and be applicable to those living next to the international border. कुछ डेवलपमेंटल प्रोजेक्ट्स थे जो आज क्लियर किए गए. एक प्रमुख डेवलपमेंटल प्रोजेक्ट था कि राजकोट में एक नया ग्रीनफील्ड एयरपोर्ट, ये 1405 करोड़ की लागत से होगा. एयरपोर्ट अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया इसको इनिशियली डेवलप करेगी, कॉर्पोरेट मॉडल होगा इसका, कोई स्पेशल पर्पस व्हीकल बनाएगी और इसको बाद में इसकी इक्विटी क्या हो वो एयरपोर्ट अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया तय करेगी. इसका 1405 करोड़. दूसरा, एशियन डेवलपमेंट बैंक की असिस्टेंस से नॉर्थ ईस्टर्न स्टेट्स में एक इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रोग्राम है which is called the Northeast.
Right, so that was the finance minister briefing the press about the cabinet meeting that happened a little while ago. It is apart from other things about the economic weaker sections of society reservation and how that will be applicable. But I am going to give, if I haven't completely run out of time yet, the last word to Vice Admiral Bangara. What would your advice be? And I know I'm putting you in a difficult position. What would your advice be right now to those discussing the way forward for India? And you know, we know that NSA, Mr. Doval, and the chiefs of the forces would be having those conversations at this point about what we need to do. Do you think that it should be left at this point to Pakistan to see if Pakistan has another misadventure or makes another step out of place, we will retaliate. But for now, perhaps this is the end of the chapter? Admiral Bangara?
Well, really speaking, instead of my giving advice, I thought at least we can discuss what we can do within. But since you have asked me this question, I think I've been out of the mainstream for quite some time, but I follow what's happening around. At the moment, I think we should focus on capacity building, which we have neglected in parts. We have to go a long way in budgeting and our modernization programs. That is to keep the military going. On the economic front, there is, we are doing quite well compared to Pakistan, so there's no issue there. But on any other people-to-people contact, that has been stopped because we have rightly said talk and terror don't go together. So we'll have to walk the talk and find an opportunity to recommence some discussions later, maybe at an appropriate time. when both our governments are settled.
Well, that's very well said. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Gentlemen, I'm going to thank you for the time that you've given us, helping us understand the situation better, and I look forward to other conversations with you. In conclusion, of course, the entire country is going to breathe a massive sigh of relief that Wing Commander Abhinandan will be back on Indian soil tomorrow. We understand that this is likely to happen around noon at the Wagah border. He's currently in Rawalpindi. He will be flown to Lahore, where from where he will be brought to the Wagah border, and he will be handed back to India. And that's something we will all look forward to. In the meantime, our entire forces are battle ready and on high alert. And India has in front of its on the table several options: economic, diplomatic, and military, on how to take this forward. But I think that as citizens of India, the one thing that we must remember as we go to bed tonight is that the people who are looking after these decisions and this strategy are doing an excellent, excellent job. Those in our forces, on the front, in the water, in the sea and in the air, are doing an excellent job, and those making the decisions seem to be doing an excellent job as well. Like has been pointed out to us several times in the last 48 hours, we are safe as we sleep. Good night and thanks for watching.